the key difference between the previous generation and the new one is that the new one wants to be able to make the decision themselves. They want to have like all the tools needed for that. The previous one, they were more like thinking about, we will have somebody else doing everything for us. So it's a bit of a different world, and I think we are really well positioned to take advantage of this shift.
I'm interested in like investing in tokenized rare comic books, rare sports cards, rookie cards. Do you eventually see that being an offering on Robinhood?
It's too early for us to really tell you what we will launch, but it could work.
This episode is brought to you by Trezor. Trezor makes beautifully crafted hardware wallets that allow you to easily and safely store your crypto assets. Trezor's been in the game for a very long time. Since 2013, they were the pioneers of hardware wallets and the seed phrase setup, and their hardware wallets are open source. In fact, my favorite is the Trezor Safe 5. It's a beautifully designed and easy to use hardware wallet, guys, and it's my go-to. And they support a variety of coins, all your top crypto tokens, your Bitcoins, your XRP, Ethereum, Solana, and much more. And even new coins, even BlackRock's BUIDL token. So they support coins on the institutional side where you have tokenization of different assets and much more. And they even offer a great service that helps you to get your Trezor device set up. You get one-on-one customer support from their team, so you can check that out as well. So once again, I'm a big fan of this hardware wallet. So if you'd like to learn more, visit the link in the description. Hey everyone, welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and joining me today is Johann Kerbrat, who is the SVP and General Manager of Crypto at Robinhood. This is Johann's second time on the podcast, and we're going to dive into the latest about Robinhood's tokenization efforts and much more. Johann, great to see you.
Hey, it's good to be back. How are you?
Very good. It's been over a year since we've spoken, I believe. There's been a lot of progress on Robinhood's side with crypto and tokenization, lots of exciting things. So I'm really excited to dive into the details.
Yeah, we stayed busy, so excited to share what we're cooking.
Absolutely. Why don't we start off with what's the latest with your crypto offerings? You know, I follow Robinhood on X. I see all the new assets you're adding. It's exciting, but maybe you can give us a summary of all the new things you guys have going on.
Yeah, I think, one of the best requests that we get all the time is to add more assets. So that's why you've been seeing a lot more of you. It's been a little easier for us to do it. Now there's a bit more clarity on the regulation front. So you will start seeing more and more of these assets as long as we see customer demand, as long as we think that there is some utility or there is something that people will be excited about. We are starting to add them on the platform. And we have a pretty long listing committee to go over it and making sure that these assets are safe for our customers. That's just one point. We also added a lot of new features. Obviously, we have staking now in almost all of the US. That's been like a very big request also from our customer. They want to use the assets not just for sending them on their self-custody wallet or not just holding them, but they also want to be able to generate some return with our assets. So that has been doing very well. And then we really pushed a lot on advanced trading. So now we have this advanced web interface called Robinhood Legend. We also have different level tiers if you use our smart exchange routing system. And so now you can pay as little as 3 basis points when you trade on Robinhood crypto based on your volume. So, a lot of things helpful for not just the normal customer, but also for the more advanced customer that until recently didn't really think about Robinhood crypto to get there. And then we have a lot more things around AI as well. So, we've been really busy.
Yeah, absolutely. And all great updates. And, is the vision for Robinhood to be this all-in-one investment platform where you have crypto, you have equities, you have all the other assets, plus you can do staking and all these great things? Is that the vision?
Yeah, we want to be that super app that everyone is using for all their financial needs. So we have the equities, we have crypto, we have prediction market, options, futures, but also now we are adding credit cards for a while now, but also banking. And I don't know if you've seen the event last week of Robinhood, but we also announced a suite of product for families. So now you can open an account for your children, for example, and really have all your finances in one spot. And I think it makes a big difference, especially when you have a market like this where things are changing quickly. And so if you want to go between crypto and equities, or if you want to be able to utilize like more crypto feature like staking or sending to your customer wallet. Having all in one platform is very critical in my opinion.
I love that feature with the family items. In the traditional world, if you want to call it that, leading up to what Robinhood and some other platforms are doing, you had these segmented platforms. I have to go log into this account to access my family stuff. I have to log into this account for crypto. I have to log into this account for stocks and equities and so forth. But with the merging, it makes it so much easier. We were talking about the super app and the all-in-one, and I love the family aspect because as someone who is a father, that's so certainly important because I'm planning for my kids in a future.
Absolutely.
But having it all on one platform makes it so easy.
Yeah, I think the big difference also is how we did it. So same thing. I'm a father, and I opened an account before Robinhood could offer a custodial account. And when I was asking people, like when people were asking me, like, "Hey, it's his birthday. I want to send a little check or something," it would be such a pain to actually cash a check and put it on that account and try to invest it after. Robinhood actually built this entire UI and UX that it's famous for, and we apply that to everything that we do. And so for this customer account, you can have a link where people can gift stock or cash. It's very easy for you to invest it because it's like if you're using Robinhood. And so I think that's really like the key difference that we have compared to our competitor is that we always go 3, 4 steps further than the competition. And we always try to make sure that when people use a product, they're actually excited and they're actually happy to use it versus like having this frustration when you use some of our competitor website and you're like trying for the fifth time to invest something.
Yeah, well said. And it's funny because there's a generational shift as well. Not to pick on boomers or anyone, but the transition from going into a physical location to talk to a financial advisor and all these things, it's now going digital, and majority of the younger folks are going, looking to access things on their smartphones. And as a generation becomes more digital, the world's become more digital. This is the path forward, right? Having it all in an app or a wallet that you control on your smartphone.
Oh, sure. The world is moving so quickly, right? So many things are happening on a daily basis. So this idea that you have to take an appointment and wait multiple days and go physically into the shop, it's not necessarily adapted to everyone's finances. And so I think having the options that we are offering is pretty critical. On top of that, we're adding a lot of these features around AI, like I was saying, where we give you a lot of this information. We digest it for you. We make sure that you don't miss any news, for example, on your crypto position or on your stock portfolio. And all of that really gives you the power to make decisions for yourself. And I think that's really the key difference between the previous generation and the new one is that the new one wants to be able to make the decision themselves. They want to have like all the tools needed for that. The previous one, they were more like thinking about, we will have somebody else doing everything for us. So it's a bit of a different world, and I think we are really well positioned to take advantage of this shift.
Pardon the interruption. Hi, I'm Tony. I'm the host of the Thinking Crypto podcast. I wanted to ask you if you can please support the podcast by hitting the like button, subscribing if you haven't as yet. You can leave a comment below as well. And if you're listening on a podcast platform such as Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, please be sure to follow and hit the 5-star rating. I'll let you get back to the content. Thank you so much. And it's funny, Johann, because AI could potentially replace your financial advisor and your investment advisor, right? Because if it's there running 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365, it doesn't need to sleep or eat. It is constantly looking at your portfolio on a microsecond standpoint. And not that you need to look at it at every second, but rather it is constantly looking at it and providing suggestions and giving you that summary. It could be, literally 5 years from now, I don't necessarily need a financial advisor. I have an AI assistant on Robinhood's platform help.
Yeah, and I think we are still a bit far from the idea that AI will make recommendations for you and replace your advisor, and there is a lot of regulation around it. So our position at this point is to at least give you the information. And to your point, when we look at your portfolio on the Robinhood side, the AI agent that we're building, they have access to all this data that you're using. So we know which stocks you have, which crypto you have. We know your risk profile, all these kind of things. So the type of information we can give you is very well adapted to you as a person and not just like a random recommendation that we will give to thousands of them. So I think that's really a big difference. And it's just like I was saying earlier, like the world is moving so quickly that being able to do all this kind of tracking is would have been a full-time job without AI. You have to follow all the news, you have to follow the sentiment on social, and you have to do that for all your assets. And there's earnings of each company and all these things. At least with Digest, we give you all this information in a go. We update it very, very frequently so that it's not always like outdated. It's not like a one time a day kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I think it's really a game changer. It levels the playing ground basically between this hedge fund that have all this fancy tool like a Bloomberg terminal and all this stuff, and the more day to day investor that is until now kind of at a disadvantage compared to these hedge funds. But now we're actually really leveling the playing field.
Yeah, that's a great example. I was talking to someone about that hedge funds and these investment firms, they have room full of analysts and they have maybe the more powerful computers and algorithms and all these things. Now with AI, to your point, it's leveling the playing field and it gives you, maybe a better advantage over time. But look, we know these folks are going to use AI too, but still, it's going to be the battle of the AI investment advisors, maybe.
Sure, for sure. And I think that's where, there is going to be a constant shift in how people are using things. But at least I think having the information is kind of the first step for you to make any decision for your investment. And really having that up to date with all the type of sources that everyone has access to, I think is a game changer for the new generation.
Absolutely. So, Johan, big milestone for Robinhood, the launch of Robinhood Chain. Tell us about this and what's the mission there?
Yeah, we just launched the testnet a few weeks ago, and it's been doing well. We just passed 21 million transactions on the testnet. We have multiple million smart contracts, and just this weekend there was a hacker house in New York where we did a little hackathon, and some of our team were there to help people and to mentor them. And seeing the atmosphere and the energy in the room was pretty fun. So it's great to see, maybe in a market that is a bit less excited about crypto right now, it's still great to see like so many developers wanting to build on the Robinhood chain. So right now for us, this idea of this chain is really that it's going to be the framework for the Robinhood crypto team and more than just the crypto team, the rest of Robinhood to start building more and more of infrastructure on this chain. That chain brings transparency, instant settlement, 24/7 trading, all this kind of things that have been existing in the blockchain for a very long time. So nothing new there, but it's going to be really focused on financial instruments and replacing kind of the traditional finance systems. And I think that's really a big step for us at Robinhood because for a long time we were using other chains or we were not necessarily using a blockchain technology. The first product that we're going to launch is obviously the tokenized assets that we've been working on, the stock tokens. There are US stocks and ETF that we put a token on and give exposure to for our customers. It's been doing pretty well as well. We launched last year with 200 of them, and now we have about 2,000 of them. We've been growing nicely, and we can use this tokenization engine that we built for these stock tokens to really tokenize any type of asset. So you shouldn't be surprised if in the future you see Robinhood starting to tokenize real estates or arts or more of these like real world assets that we haven't really seen on chain yet.
Johan, it might be a bit too early to answer this question, but you have the tokenized stocks and equities, but you also have the traditional way of buying stocks and equities, right? Which has been on the platform for a long time. So, two things running in parallel here. How are you presenting that to users? And what's the differentiator? What do you tell them? Like, well, the tokenized version you can trade on weekends while the other one maybe not, right? Um, is that kind of the dichotomy between the two?
Yeah, and we think, the most important part is to actually not complexify too much the things around like blockchain and crypto. For a lot of customers, what they actually want is the exposure. They don't necessarily care about if it's a tokenized asset or if it's not a tokenized asset. So the way that we launch our product in the EU is a very, very simple way where it looks like the same US interface that you're used to, but we added a little pill at the top that says like it's a crypto technology so that people are aware of that. But at least, you're not constantly thinking about, okay, this is a token. Do I need gas? Do I need a private key or wallet? Like all of these things, we abstracted it away to make sure that people could really just focus on what is their like investment strategy. And when the two are going to coexist, it's really going to depend on your usage. So to your point, if you need to, for example, use it as collateral on DeFi, or you want to borrow or lend against it, well, in that situation, we'll push you on the tokenized asset version. But if your goal is to just trade between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. on the week, well, actually, even a bit less, we will just like keep you using the traditional asset. But in the background, there might be ways where we will use the technology more and more to offer like instant settlement, for example.
Right.
The traditional system is still using T+1. And there are ways, I think, where we can actually use the blockchain technology to optimize this and reduce the fees and the cost of capital for the customers, or the risk, the counterparty risk for the firms, and all of this kind of things. So uh, a lot of things that are still needed to be figured out at this point, and it's not going to be done in a day. But uh, we definitely see a world where you can have the two assets working together and slowly replacing some of the traditional system little by little.
So, with the backdrop of the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ and all these folks looking to do tokenization themselves to go 24/7, do you see, Johan, that maybe in 5 to 8 years, that there won't be the two offerings? It'll just be one, all tokenized.
I think so. I think it's going to be this culture shift that we've seen for stablecoin, for example. The first time that people were talking about stablecoin, there was a lot of doubts. Why do I need this? I have my dollar and I can wire. And slowly you saw the fact that you can have reversal. You can do it 24/7 during weekends. You don't have to wait for the Fed to open. It's a lot easy to change FX because now you have liquidity pool with different stablecoin. All of these things now make it that a firm is almost at a disadvantage to not use stablecoin. And so I think it's going to be the same thing for tokenized asset. A world where you don't want to have 24/7 instant settlement, transparency, I don't really think will exist. The technology being as good as it is, I think people are just going to replace slowly their system. But it's going to take time. There's a lot of antiquated system out there. There's a lot of things that needs to be rewritten using new code. And so I think it's going to take time to see this full adoption. But to your point, like 5, 8 years, I wouldn't be surprised if it's the case.
Now, Robinhood's chain is based on Arbitrum, which is built on Ethereum. Walk us through the setup. Is this a layer three, kind of like ETH, Arbitrum, and then Robinhood chain?
Yeah, it's a layer two. So Arbitrum has this technology where basically you to make it very simple, you're copying the current Arbitrum stack and you're pasting it and making it your own Robinhood stack. So it's still a layer two. There is no layer three there. But the idea for us was really we wanted to have the liquidity that exists on Ethereum. We wanted to have the security that exists on Ethereum because it's been there for a very long time. They've worked a lot to make it decentralized and censorship resistant. But we also wanted to have the customization that we needed to really build all the tools that we wanted to do. There's a lot of things that we've been working on around compliance, for example, for the stock tokens. Every single countries are going to have their own different set of regulation. And so for us, it's really important to make sure that we can support that. So all of this will be part of our chain, and you will see it getting more and more integrated with our different apps. And I think that's when it's going to be really fun for our customer. Like they will get all the benefit from the chain directly within their app. And I think we will be able to really give some value add to whatever feature they are using currently.
Would it make sense that over time you might support other chains, or maybe not? Maybe it just makes sense to have one chain that you're running on the Robinhood platform. But I'm curious there. Could you plug in Solana or whatever over time?
Yeah, I mean, we already support Solana for a lot of things. We do staking, we do transfer. If you use our Robin wallet, actually give you we cover the gas fee for you, so you don't have the complexity of having like the gas swap and everything the first time you want to do a swap. So for us, the goal of Robinhood is still to be this system that anyone can use. You don't have to be an engineer. They don't have to be a pro in crypto. We want to make it simple so that you understand what you're trying to do, and you also can do whatever you want to do without paying 20 times fees and transferring, bridging, swapping, all these kind of things. So we want to remove that complexity. And I think the world where we live in right now is that there will be multiple chain from every company. Coinbase has one, Stripe just announced one, Circle as well. And same thing with stablecoin. Like there is multiple stablecoins, and so we think there is value for all of these assets and all of this technology. And so what we are going to position ourselves is this aggregator at the top that takes away this complexity. And based on what you're doing, if we have to interact with Solana or with Base or whatever, we will do it for you. And you don't have to think about it. But I think there will be more and more of this chain and more of this coin. So we really need to focus on that aspect of making it simple for the customer. At the end of the day, like they are the ones that are going to bring the real value. It's usage and utility coming from our retail customer, and so we want to take care of them.
Now, one of the recent added tokenized assets is tokenized gold. Tell us about that product and the offering there.
Yeah, it's we listed the Paxos Gold system, and we think it's important because gold was and it still is something that is moving a lot in this market, and so we're getting a lot of customer interested into finding a way to pay less fees than some of the ETFs that already exist, and so we made sure to list it quickly. But I think the real excitement here is really to see this tokenization idea coming to fruition, where you already see stock, ETF, gold, and basically anything in the future will be able to be tokenized and exchanged and traded. And I think for me that's really the exciting part, because until now there's still a lot of things that are difficult to access.
Mm.
And there is also, usually when they are difficult to access, there's also a lot of fees added to it and a lot of middle layers where they all charge their own portion of fee. So having these tokenized assets really kind of cut the number of layers and give you basically less costs, and you can actually invest more and benefit more from the move in the asset.
John, you could probably see in the back here, I have some rare comic books and cards that are graded, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's something I grew up with. So I'm interested in like investing in tokenized rare comic books, rare sports cards, rookie cards, things like that. Do you eventually see that being an offering on Robinhood? I know it's more of the collectibles market, but let's say the first Superman comic or the Michael Jordan rookie card, right? If those are tokenized, I'm going to invest in it, John. Do you plan to add things like that?
It's too early for us to really tell you what we will launch, but it could work, right? So for anything with real world assets, there is this question about custody of the actual physical goods, right? So in your case, for example, how do we make sure that this card or this comic book actually exists somewhere in a place, and this token is actually a one-to-one representation? So that's a kind of difficulties that we have to go around before we can really make sure that we can offer something like that. And so that's why for stock tokens product, every time you buy a token, we buy the same amount of that stock. And so at all time, it's always one to one. And we want to make sure that it will always be the case for anything that we support. But if we can find a way to do that, absolutely. I think that's really the beauty of this is you could be, anywhere in the world. You could be in Latin America or you could be in Asia and trade the same thing that you're trading here in the US, in New York. And I think that's such a big differentiator, and that changed completely the access for a lot of people. For a very long time, a very large part of the population was excluded from the financial markets, and it still is at this point today. If you go to random places far away from here, you will see that investing in the U.S. stock market is not the easiest, or you have a lot of fees. Same thing for what you just said. Like being able to access a comic book from somewhere random, I'm sure is not that easy. So being able to trade it on a platform and making sure that it's one-to-one and it's actually backed by the asset, I think is going to be a game changer for a lot of these collectible.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. The infrastructure needs to be there because it could be a rare car, maybe a very old Ferrari
Right.
or something like that, but it needs to be at a well-known custodian or a holder, right? Like a BNY Mellon or maybe the auction house like Christie's, where they have the infrastructure, they're legit. They didn't start up last night or last week. They hold it and there's verification, I don't know, a live feed video into the vault or something like that.
Exactly. I think that's going to be key for a lot of these tokenized asset. And we saw it, I think what was it, like 2022 or with the FTX saga and some of their tokenized effort that were actually not really backed one-to-one. And so it's really still, stamped in my brain. And I want to make sure that whatever offering we do is 100% safe. For us, it's going to be key to find that. And at the same time, also, we really have to find ways where we can make the offering exciting. The idea of a Ferrari, for example, um, just having the idea that you own a portion of the Ferrari is one thing, but also how do you get excited? Like, can you see it? Can you go there in
Yeah.
person and actually touch it or whatever? So I think that's all these kind of things we want to bring to the platform to really make people excited about it.
That's such a great point. Like, well, what are the additional benefits? Like, if I own a piece of let's say the first Superman comic, right? I would want to go see it at some point, just look at
For
it and be
sure.
like, yeah, I own part of that.
For sure. I think that's really the cool part, right? And
Yeah,
you can still have an NFT on your phone and you can, look at it. But I think seeing the real deal is kind of critical as well.
absolutely. It's just fascinating, and I'm so excited to see the different assets that are going to be tokenized, and the markets are going to be built around them. Um, I wanted to ask you about global dollar USDG. Robinhood
Yep.
is part of that network. What are some new updates there, and how is Robinhood leveraging that stablecoin?
Yeah, we use it a lot on the firm side of things. So we use it for settlement with some of our venues or liquidity providers. And we're going to do more and more with it on the retail side. We are just waiting a bit on some of this Genius Act / Clarity Act regulation to be in place. Um, but it's been doing well. I think the idea of a stable coin that redistributes revenue with the participant has been doing very well with everybody. And the goal is not just for one company to enrich themselves as much as the stable is being used. So the idea with USDG is that if you're a participant, if you're a distributor, you will be able to get a portion of the revenue. And we just think it makes more sense. That way, everyone has a fair kind of participation in it. And if you're doing a lot of work for it, then you will get a lot more revenue. If you're not doing very much, you won't get a ton of revenue. And at the end, we hope that we can also redistribute this revenue to the user. So if you're using USDG to trade, maybe it will reduce your cost in fees, for example, or if you're just holding it, maybe you will be able to get some rewards. Um, a lot of this is still being debated on the regulation side of things, so it's hard for us to tell you exactly what we will launch there, but that's kind of the vision around it. And we think that this idea of stablecoin just hoarding all the revenue for themselves is kind of outdated, and you will see more and more of these stablecoin that are sharing revenue. And the idea of this network is really that it's a consortium of big companies that are in crypto. You have Kraken, you have OKX, you have Bullish, and more. And really, it's going to create a network effect because you will be able to use USDG not just on Robinhood, but in different platforms and in different places. And therefore, you will have more incentive to actually use it.
I love that it's a consortium with these different companies, including Robinhood. To your point, the enriching of themselves, companies that are the standalone holders of a specific stablecoin. But I love the consortium, and it's more distributed. I kind of trust it more because you have all these reputable participants who are supporting the network and the offering to give back to the users. But Johann, not everyone is a fan of stablecoin rewards or yields. The banks are trying to push back on this, and they're holding up the Clarity Act. How do you think this situation gets resolved?
I think they will come up to some kind of compromise at some point. I do think there is a lot of differences between holding a stablecoin and holding cash on an FDIC insured account. I think we see difference from our customer behavior, right? Like if every customer wanted to be using to be getting the max yield, they could currently do it with money market fund. They could do it with high yield saving accounts like we have on Robinhood. Um, but a lot of them are actually thinking that they want the FDIC insurance, they want the reputable bank, and all of these kind of things. That's why you still have so much more cash available there, and most people are still keeping most of their cash there. And so I think we are kind of penalizing the people that are actually using stablecoin for other things. Like maybe they're using it for trading. They want to keep it unstable so that they can more quickly move between wallets or between exchanges. Maybe they want to use it with AI. There's all this discussion of agents that are going to support it. And so it's not really fair that for these people, they actually cannot get the rewards, right? And so if they want to maximize their return on the cash that they're holding on stable, the best thing for them to do is to sell it back to cash, put it back on a sweep program or on a high saving account, and as soon as they need it back, they will transfer it back into stablecoin. So it's not the most optimized for the customer, for the companies. And on top of that, the customer is the one hurting at the end of the day. So our point of view is that, we should have like a clear disclosure explaining the risk. Stablecoin have some level of risk compared to an FDIC insured account. We've seen in the past that there was some depegging happening, at least on DeFi. We've seen some stablecoin just completely blowing up. And so there are some risks. Customers should be aware of that. They should understand that. We should make sure that they understand that with maybe doing an assessment test or something like this. But after that, if they still want to use it, we should make sure that they are not being penalized for it, and they should get their fair share of the rewards.
Yeah, well said. I think as long as the customer knows what they're getting into, I believe in the free market, and folks should have that option. Personally, I have my regular bank account, but I also participate in getting stablecoin yield and rewards. I participate in staking. Do I put all my money into there? No, but it's great to have that option and earn the higher reward.
Exactly. The goal for us is really to give you the option and to make it accessible for you, and then you should make the decision for yourself. But having some level of diversification and being able to access this higher yield, generating like offering like staking, or being able to just even access crypto, right? Because for a very long time you could not even access crypto in most of your investment platform. We think it's really the key point for people to be able to decide on their finances and their investment strategy.
I'm curious about, you mentioned AI agents, and I don't know if this is along the lines of what we talked about earlier with an AI assistant. Is Robinhood planning to offer like a marketplace with AI agents or build certain agents, and then offer that to the users or sell it? I don't know how that would work.
Definitely too early, and we don't have any plan there. But I think it is a world where you will see more and more of this agent doing things for you. So, for example, like my own little club out that I named Kerbrat, and I thought that was very funny when I did it. That is doing things for me, like making reservation for restaurants and things like that. And so right now they're using a credit card, which I don't love. But in the future, you could see a world where they use a little wallet where I can transfer some stablecoin from Robinhood and fund my wallet, and then they can use that to create reservation or buy the thing that I care about. So I don't think we're super far from this world, seeing how quickly things have been moving in the past 18 months, 2 years. And so I think for us, it's something on top of our mind, and everything that we build, we always think about this idea of instant and 24/7 because that's the world where we are going to. And technically, you could use any of this technology from blockchain and from stablecoin with these agents and actually make it a lot safer and a lot more transparent than if you were using like some of the other payments rails. So um, I think you will see a lot more. One thing that we're doing on agents and API is we have a crypto API that you can use to trade on your Robinhood account. You can see your holding, you can place orders, and you can get also the smart exchange routing that I was mentioning before, where we get a very small fee up to as low as 3 basis points. And so one thing I was playing on a few weekends ago was to create a little trading bot that was hitting this API. It was pretty impressive to see how quickly I was able to do this compared to 10 years ago where I had to write my own arbitrage bot between platform. It took me multiple weeks to get to somewhere that was actually decent. Here, like in a pace of like half a day in a weekend, I was able to do something very sophisticated. And so that's where we want to make sure that we are ready for is. If you want to use something like this, we want to make sure that we have an API that supports your need and that allows you to do all the things that you're asking for.
Johann, I'm going to put my request in now. I'm ready to beta test when you guys tokenize collectibles and even when you offer AI agents.
All right,
So
sounds
put
good.
me on the list.
I will keep it in mind.
I wanted to ask about Robinhood's investments because I read some news that you're investing in crypto companies. So you're not only offering crypto, building with the technology, but you're also investing. For example, Talos, there was a Series B funding which Robinhood participated in. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it's something we do often. Basically, when we partner well with a company or when we think that there is something more that we can do that we can offer to our customer, uh, we are usually going to try to do a fairly deep partnership, and sometimes it ends up into investment. You saw it in the past. We partnered with Arbitrum. We also invested in Lighter, which is a perpetuals DEX, and Talos is one of them. We use Talos as one of our other routing system. We have multiples. And the idea is really to make sure that customer can route to as many different liquidity provider as possible so that we can offer the best price. And so when you buy Bitcoin on the platform, for example, we are going to look at all different liquidity provider and we will only send the order to the one offering the best price at the moment of when you're placing the order. And that really allows us to compress, any type of spread and making sure that we offer you the best price. And so this Talos investment is one way for us to continue improving our liquidity platform and our order routing system. Um, and you shouldn't be surprised if you see more and more of this. It's just a way that we've been working for a long time. Lately, they've been making the news a bit more than before. That's more why you're seeing it. The Talos team has been a great team to work with, and so we're excited to continue partnering with them.
That's great. I did want to ask you about the market. We are in a bear market for crypto, although it seems like we're finding some sort of local bottom. What's your outlook in the short term and the long term? Do you see by the end of the year we're maybe back in the bull cycle, so to speak?
It's always funny for me when we call bear market and Bitcoin I think is still at 68 or something like
Yeah.
that. I'm from the generation where we couldn't believe Bitcoin going above $1,000. There is definitely less excitement in the market. I think what has been interesting for us is that overall we see our customers still being a bit more on the net buy side on Bitcoin and some other assets. And so I think there is just a lot of this question around leverage trading that is happening in other places of the world that are kind of creating a bit of this pressure. But overall, I will say the excitement on the retail side has not completely gone away. We also still see a lot of activity on DeFi, which I think we couldn't see as much back in previous bear markets. And the testnet of Robinhood Chain is one proof of that. Getting to 21 million transactions after a few weeks is definitely showing that there is developer interest, that there are a lot of people wanting to build on chain. And so it's a bit of a different world than 4 years ago. And the other big difference, I think, is just the institution. The amount of institutions that are still trading crypto on a daily basis, the amount of ETF, the amount of DATs, and all of these things, it's a very different ball game than the last bear circle. So I think for us, what we focus on at this point is really building the technology, making sure that we give the information, so like all the AI tools that we are building around it, making sure that we have all the tools for you to create like stop loss and all these kind of things to protect yourself in the market. But at the end of the day, we're still very confident into the ideas that crypto is something that customers are interested in.
Yeah, for sure. There's a saying. That's in the bear market is when a lot of building gets done, right? Because there's not
Yeah,
distractions about price. So, to your point, there's a lot happening with institutional adoption and people building. Robinhood, a great example of a lot of building happening. So, I'm excited to see later this year a lot of these things that are being built come to production, and what that looks like in the real in the with a customers participating and much more. So, very
yeah,
very
for sure.
exciting.
And like think about the last bear market. Um, you were not talking about tokenized stocks. You were not talking about all these like utilities that is actually happening on chain. So I think that's going to be the key difference is when you start seeing all this chain working, all these settlements, all the traditional kind of payments world being replaced by stablecoin. All of this is going to bring a lot of utility and interest again on the market.
Now, we talked a lot about what Robinhood's doing and all the things that are being launched and so forth. Is there anything else on your roadmap that you want to highlight?
On the roadmap, no, at this point, I think you'll just have to wait a bit longer to see some of our news. But um, we are just going to continue doing what we've done so far, like disrupting the market and making sure that we don't just offer crypto, but also we use crypto to power some of our system. And again, like this idea of bringing utility into the ecosystem for us is critical.
Johann, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I'm looking forward to the future updates. We're going to have you back on as more things get rolled out. But thank you so much.
Sounds good. Anytime. It was fun to be here.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't as yet. If you're listening on a podcast platform such as Spotify or Apple, please follow and leave a 5-star rating. Thank you so much.